Welcome to the making of Helper Haven. I'm Joshua Macy, and my role in the project was producing, doing the Foley, writing the story and script, researching, and a few other bits.
I'm Levi, and I was in charge of animation, and I also worked on some character designs.
I'm Chloe, and I also helped with character designs and environment design, and then also the storyboard.
We looked at the different briefs that are available to us, and we found one that interested us, the Open Creative Conscience brief, which is about doing an issue on a topic of your choice, and we chose the idea of adopting dogs from shelters rather than breeders.
I had the idea of an animated children's illustrated book inspired by the opening scene of Shrek.
The king and queen were blessed with a beautiful baby girl.
We wanted to aim the animation to children's ages 5 to 8, however we still wanted to make it appealing to adults.
I wanted to contact various organisations to try and set up interviews. I eventually managed to contact All About the Dogs. Charlotte agreed to an interview with us.
What's your name?
Charlotte Long.
This is where we asked her questions.
I'm a student at Salford University. I do wildlife conservation with zoo biology.
To try and learn, more about this topic.
And I'm self-employed with my own dog walking business called All About the Dogs.
In the interview, she mentioned a scenario which is common causation for dogs being abandoned, and we thought it could be used effectively in our animation.
So what's the reason for so many puppies to come in?
Yeah, majority of the dogs that come in are just, oh, that dog's too much for me. And we get a lot of handovers like that, but it just depends. So, like I say, it gets too big for the home, or if they have kids. Quite a few sad cases is the family gets pregnant and they think suddenly, oh, we can't have a dog, what a baby coming.
Yeah.
And then you're like, why? Surely it is your family, that's your first baby.
During the research phase, we wanted to look at what else people were doing out there similar to our own project. And this is when we came across a special someone ad.
I don't know what it is that makes me love you so. I only know that's pretty cute. Let you go.
It was this reaction that I hoped our audience would feel after watching our animation, which is why we decided to structure our narrative in a similar way.
I found it an interesting challenge writing the story for the animation because of the limitations that animation has to offer. I wanted to fit an entire character and story arc within about 1 minute and 20 seconds of animation, and to do this I wanted to use a tried and tested method called the hero's journey.
Harmony gives an example of how the hero's journey plays out in the episode Morning Night Run from season 2.
I also reached out and contacted Luke Nutt and Benjamin Waite, who are two creative writers.
My name's Ben. I'm doing English and History at Magnet, and I'm helping do the story.
I'm Luke. I'm studying English and creative writing. I'm helping with the story as well.
We wanted to make the story simple to fit within all eight categories of the hero's journey, which, after working closely with Luke and Ben, we achieved.
Baby.
Yeah.
And the baby cries every time the dog comes in. So you could show the part of the puppy coming into contact with the baby being a bit nervous, and the baby loves the dog.
Yeah.
It's the pound, isn't it? Yeah.
Is it called a pound?
So it's like the dog shelter?
Dog shelter.
Dog shelter, that's it, yeah.
Dog shelter.
The writing process didn't take very long with both Luke and Ben's help, and once we had finished, I'd scripted it down using Adobe Story, and I wrote the logline, bio, synopsis treatment, and the script breakdown to help with the future production of the animation.
We've put both of our ideas together, and obviously we took a lot of inspiration from the hero's journey, and I think we pulled it off really well. It's very original. It's not out of the ordinary either, so it's easy to relate to, I suppose.
We've taken the best aspects of both of what we've done is a good story on the message you're trying to put forward.
I designed a very simple storyboard, then decided towards the end of the project that I wasn't entirely happy with it. Due to time constraints, I wanted to fix it up a little and make it apply to the animation, but I decided against it, as it was a good opportunity to show the development within the story and what we decided to scrap and add in.
When we're converting the storyboard into an animatic, I was there to help out with the timings, as I wanted to make sure that it's not so fast-paced that the viewers can't comprehend what's going on, but also not too slow-paced that becomes boring.
To finish the animatic, I put some temporary audio under it, downloaded from SoundSnap to get a sense of what the project would look like and to give me a better idea of what Foley I would need to record. Once the animatic was done, I then booked out the Foley studio and asked Tom Hinckley, a TV and radio student, to help to do the voiceover, and Kate Stevens to be a Foley assistant on the day.
Find your companion, help a haven, but like pause between it, so it's like find your companion, help a haven, like
find your companion, help a haven. Find your companion, help a haven. Find your companion, help a haven.
I think that's probably enough now. We've got like 3 minutes of takes.
After finishing the Foley, I returned to the animatic and realised that we wanted a more stripped down version from the first animatic that we had, only focusing on the essential sounds and instead focusing on music. Originally I wanted to write the music myself, but I realised that I wouldn't have the time to do it. I then contacted Joseph Ullman to write the soundtrack for the project. Once the animation would then be finished, we sent it over to him for him to then finish mixing the song and timing it perfectly to fit the animation.
When designing the main character, Tallulah, I wanted her to look quite unique compared to other dogs, including defining features that make her memorable, as pugs have been drawn countless amounts of times before. I also took references from my previous making of projects where I focused mainly on character design, using my dog as a reference as well. As Levi was redrawing my design in a more simpler style, I had to focus on whether or not did she have 3 paws, as she would have been quite tricky to animate, so I decided to keep it minimal and have her with a lazy eye and 1 ear. During our storyline, we wanted Tallulah to go through a painful experience such as losing an eye or an ear, so I designed an angry, dominant dog similar to Spike from Tom and Jerry, as he's quite intimidating.
There, son. Ain't no cat gonna hurt you.
I then made it my job to interpret Chloe's designs into my own style, so that would fit in with more of the human characters that I intended to design, and also to make it easier for them to animate. This is why I made them more symmetrical whilst keeping their imperfections. I also structured them using simple geometric shapes. This way it was easier to pose them in certain positions later, and also greatly helped with the turnarounds, which I'd done for each different age of the dog which we included in the story. I also done this with the other background character that Chloe designed, Tyrone. I took it upon myself to design the human characters myself. These again were constructed using simple geometric shapes, and turnarounds were also made for each character. After settling on a design for Cassie, I then realised I would have to redesign her slightly, as the get-up she was wearing was quite revealing, and therefore wouldn't be suitable for the target audience. As for Tony, I decided to give him similar imperfections as to what Tallulah has, therefore making it more clear that he would sympathise with her.
Pixar, Disney and Cartoon Network were massive sources of inspiration when creating my backgrounds. I had a few problems creating some designs, such as Photoshop slowing me down massively, having a lack of motivation due to stress and being incredibly picky with previous designs. As I continued to produce backgrounds, I could see my skills constantly developing. The variations of colours began to work better together and with the character. My favourites would be the scene where Tallulah is kicked out to the front of the house. All of the colours worked nicely together and it wasn't too cluttered for the character. Placing a filter over the top of it enhanced the background even more, as it made a better indication that it was night. I also had to produce multiple iterations of my backgrounds to highlight days going by.
As our story was quite ambitious, I wanted to find the best possible way of showcasing the life of Tallulah in an effective way. This is when I was reminded of a segment from a Simpsons episode where Homer's life flashes before his eyes, and it was edited in a way that Homer's entire life story could be shown within a minute. I tried to emulate this animation style in my animation by showing a sequence of stills of the dog as he reacts to the change that is going on. When posing the human characters, I used the geometric shapes which I assembled their bodies up of earlier, and reassembled them in the desired positions, which I then used as a basis as I drew around them. Unfortunately, key story aspects had to be sacrificed due to the fact that we got the pacing wrong in the animatic stage. This is why Tony no longer appears in the scene after Tallulah gets abandoned, given her treats. However, we thought that this wasn't a necessary element of the narrative. As I wasn't aiming for a fluid frame-by-frame animation, each pose had to be distinct enough that it doesn't look like we're trying to emulate that, not being too jumpy that the audience can't comprehend what's going on. I used Serif Draw Plus for all the asset and then moved them into Sony Vegas for the editing afterwards. I went back to the way I normally animated for the end scene to show a return to normality for Tallulah. For this segment, I disassembled my drawing of Tallulah into separate assets so that they all could be moved and rotated individually without affecting one another. These were then keyframed in the timeline.
To finalise our project, we gathered live action footage to use as our opening and closing segments using the green screen room, as doing this would allow us to transition from live action to animation effectively.
After a lot of stress, I'm so glad that we managed to finish our project. And I'm glad that we've actually made something of our own from the ground up, instead of going by a brief set by specific guidelines, as I feel like more of our own creation.
I felt that the collaborative part of the project was really successful in helping us to achieve the deadline that we had set for ourselves for quite an ambitious project.
I feel like I've designed my own little world, and Levi's f***ing sick of looking at pugs.
I think I ended up with like 220 individual drawings of the pug.
That was a lot.
But we got it done, and we're all very happy with the project. Thank you very much to everybody that helped, for Charlotte for the interview, Tom for voiceover, and everyone else's contribution to the project. That's it, I suppose. All right, are we done?
Yep.